So the learning target in this video is I can find the max slash min of a function and identify where the graph is increasing slash decreasing. So we're going to start by finding the max and mins of a few different graphs here, and then we'll talk about increasing versus decreasing. So when I'm given a function, and it can be any function, so I just drew one on this graph. If I want to find the maximum value for this function, I just look for the highest point on the graph. So when I look at this line, I'm looking at my y-axis and I'm deciding where's the highest point. Hopefully you notice that right here, approximately, is the highest point on the graph, right? It starts here, it goes down, it comes up, and then it goes back down. So my highest point's right there. And then I simply just look at what height is that at. Well, it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? It's at a height of 6. So my max would be 6 there. Okay, then looking at the minimum, it's the same idea, but now I'm looking at the lowest point. So I look to see where's the lowest point and it doesn't go any lower. Well, that's going to be approximately right here. And then once again, I just count that out. So it's 1, 2, 3. So it's at -3. So my minimum then is -3. All right, let's look at two more examples of doing this. So here I have another graph drawn. Okay, and you'll see it goes up, comes down, levels out, goes down, and swerves back up. The maximum is just my highest point. So I look at that highest point and I see where is that at. So counting from the origin again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's at a height of 5. So my max would be at 5. Looking at the minimum then, I'm going to take the lowest point on my graph and I'm just going to count to see how many that's gone down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gone down to -4, so my minimum would be -4. Now, I'm going to look at this last one, and I probably should have changed this a little bit. So I'm going to draw a little bit onto this line here. So imagine this line actually has an arrow once. Okay, so if I look at this guy now, okay, so looking at this graph, and I want to find the max and mins. To find the max, once again, I'm going to take the highest point, okay, so approximately right there, and count it out. So it goes up 1, 2, 3. So I have a maximum of 3. Now, let's suppose that there was really an arrow here instead of how it was originally drawn. So we know this arrow is going down, so it's going to trickle on for forever, right? It's just going to keep going lower and lower and lower. So when I look at my graph, okay, I'll notice I have a low point here, but because this arrow goes on forever and it keeps going lower and lower and lower, I actually don't have a minimum of this function, right? The function is just going to keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, or more and more negative. So we actually don't have a minimum there. Okay, so arrows can take the minimum away. And you can also have a graph that doesn't have a maximum, right? Like if I think about a graph where maybe I have something that goes up, comes down, and then finishes up. So if it's a situation like this, right, I'd have a minimum point, right, my lowest point on the graph, but because it swerves up and it goes on forever, this would not have a maximum, okay? So I guess you could say no max in this case. Okay, so we can have situations where we get no minimum and we get no maximum. All right, then let's look at the second part of this learning target. Let's talk about where the graph is increasing versus decreasing. Now, when doing this, it's important to know that increasing is when you have a positive slope, and decreasing is when we have a negative slope, okay? And we always read the graph from left to right, okay? So we're going from the left side of the graph to the right side of the graph. And you can almost picture yourself on a roller coaster. So imagine that you're actually on the function as a roller coaster. If I start on the left and I ride down the roller coaster going to the right, all I got to do is ask myself, am I going up or down? So it's sloping negative, right? I would be going down the roller coaster. So I would say it is decreasing on this section of the graph. Okay, I'm going down. Then when I hit this lowest minimum point, then it starts to slope back upwards, right? I start going up the roller coaster. So this part of the roller coaster, I would say I am increasing, okay? I'm going up this section of the graph, and then I hit the maximum point, and then it goes back down. I would be decreasing once again, okay? So When identifying where the graph is increasing and decreasing, you just simply label your graph where that occurs. So we're decreasing over this section, increasing over that section, and then decreasing again. All right, let's look at the second graph then. The same thing, we just want to label where it's increasing, decreasing, and so forth. So once again, imagine yourself on the left side of this roller coaster. And as I go up here, I'm going to say it's increasing. So I'm going to put an I there. Okay, it's going up, increasing. Then I reach my maximum and I notice it starts to decrease. Okay, it decreases over this section. However, this section levels out. Okay, it's flat, so it's neither increasing nor decreasing. So I'm just going to put an N there for neither. Okay, it's doing neither one. And then it starts to drop off again, right? The roller coaster drops again, so this section would be decreasing. And then lastly, it swings back up, so that section would be increasing. All right, then lastly here, the last graph. Okay, imagine you started on this roller coaster on the arrow and you're going left to right. Well, we can see that we'd be climbing the mountain here, so that would be increasing. It's going to be going up over this section. Then it decreases, so this is decreasing. And then it levels out again, so that's going to be another neither. It's neither decreasing nor increasing. Then it falls off, so that'll be decreasing over this section, and then the last section will be increasing. Okay. So on that piece, you just simply label increasing versus decreasing or neither if it's flat.